Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, my fellow YouTubers. Welcome to another edition of Mary Sky Realty's video blog. This is just a short update. So, I had to call the sheriff tonight Chloe called the sheriff. I'll explain what happened. It says voluntary statement. So, what happened? I'll tell you what happened. So, here's the whole story, okay? Chloe goes out and she decides to go shopping for my groceries. Right. Now, Pee Wee said groceries have to be separate. Well, when I checked my food stamp balance, it was at the same amount. It wasn't touched. So what happened? Well, I called Chloe and I said, why am I being charged for all these things? These are like $70 to $95, more like $95, right? Charges. Chloe said, oh, well, the card reader wasn't working, this wasn't working. And I finally called up the crisis team. I sent out my crisis. They turned around and said, look, card readers are working everywhere. If it's doing that, they just didn't want to they didn't want to use a food card because, whatever reason, right? So I got charged for like 12 pounds of meat for Chloe. And I asked her, why am I paying for your meat? Chloe says, oh, well, it's not that problem. Well, anyways, I talked to the crisis team. Then Chloe called the crisis team, and Chloe was waiting for a DCR to call back. That's what does the voluntary commitments and involves. Anyway, so what happened was Chloe goes into the line by Chloe's standard, and she panicked. The debit card wasn't working. So she turned around and decided, or the food card wasn't working, to use my card without thinking. So I turned around and I said to Chloe, hold on a sec. I asked Chloe why I should be paying for like $50 in sausages in my hand. Chloe's like, oh, well, I'll pay you back. Well, everyone knows Chloe never pays back, right? So I finally said, look, this is wrong. You used my card and you used my card and nothing happened. You just used it without thinking, well, she told the officer she was panicked and she was in line and they said the card reader denied. So she grabbed the first card out of her pocket, which was mine, which I told her specifically to pay for my alcohol. She decided to charge $257. Guy's like, well, you're not doing too bad with your balance, ma'am. He took a picture of it. I said, look, it's the principle. I'm not putting up with this abuse. It's an excuse. Well, so he was upstairs first talking to Chloe. I was talking to my dad on Zoom. Well, he came in and Dad interjected his thing. Look, Chloe. He said, look, Chloe's doing this on purpose. Didn't even think about Rita. And he's like, how do you know she's not doing it on purpose? Could be mental. So he says, Rita, do you want to explain the food thing or should I? Go ahead. So Dad said, look, she basically took all Rita's box meals, macaroni and cheese, stuff like that. And he pulls out a box from the trash box, right? Looks at it, takes a picture of it. Expired 5 months. He said, look, Chloe, you hid that food, hid this food. And then he asked, what's all that food in the box by the door in the near the bathroom? Dad said, oh, that's the expired stuff that Rita didn't get to eat because Chloe hid it. So he's taking pictures of that, and it's expired 6 months, 5 months, 4 months. And then he said, well, this is somewhat justifiable. But then Dad said, what about the macaroni and cheese? He said, well, where's the mac and cheese? Well, we found the empty boxes. Then he looked at this, and he took pictures of this. All the excess macaroni noodles Chloe decided to save. He looked at me, and he said, so Chloe hid your food, wouldn't let you eat it. Then Dad said, tell her about the hamburger. So I said, well, there was 200 pounds of hamburgers that went missing, and I explained it to him. He's like, oh my God. So the thing is, I need to sign an affidavit of what happened. I said, look, this is what happened. I was on YouTube. And I called Chloe. And I said to Chloe, my food card wasn't touched, but you used my debit card to pay for everything. Why? Chloe's answer is, oh, the debit card was on. Well, you should have called me while you were in line. She didn't think about it. The police officer panicked. Thing is, Chloe doesn't pay back anything, right? And then Dad said, look, Rita's been taking care of Chloe for 4 years. She never pays back anything. What does Rita, what does she owe? About $40,000. And he's like, I said, so in the end, who's at fault here? Is it me? Well, Chloe called the sheriff and said she stole $95. And he came out, and he opened an investigation. So he's like, get your advocates to help you fill this out tomorrow or whatever, deliver it to us, and we'll get it taken care of. I'll go to the prosecutor. More likely nothing will happen, but Dad said, well, of course nothing's going to happen because you guys don't want to deal with Satan incarnate. And he says, well, how do you know Chloe's not mentally ill? He said, because Chloe's got oppositional defiance disorder. And he says, how do you know this? He says, I'm a psychiatrist. I said, oh, nice. What's Rita got? Most likely bipolar, but Rita doesn't sleep much. So what happened was that he tells me I got to fill out only don't embellish. Well, I'm not embellishing. What happened is this. I was on YouTube and I asked her, why is it that my bill is $257? Her answer was, oh, the card reader wasn't working. So I started Googling it. And yet, everyone else is getting it to work here. And yet, she used it. Right? He even said, so you don't drink aloe vera drinks? No. The aloe vera drinks are empty. So he's like, okay. And I said, he's like, it's only small stuff. Well, yeah. But then he said, I wouldn't trust the bratwurst or the sausages, the Chipotle brats, because, no offense, man, but Chloe was out for so long. It was, whatever. So in the end, Dad's like, look, she's done this. She even kicked the bed on purpose and said, this is how, he explained everything. And he's just like, look, this is the end for Chloe. Either the prosecuting attorney will issue jail time, community service, court-ordered involuntary treatment, or court-ordered group home with guardianship because Chloe can't handle it. You, of course. And then he says, do you have any other evidence? I said, well, Lori. He said, Lori who? I said, the APS lady. I said, she's been out 4 times. He's like, really? So I said, yeah, I have the file. So I showed him. In the end, he was just like, wow. So in the end, he turned around and he goes out and Dad's like, play the movie and we'll wait for him. Well, I started the movie and he comes back in and he's like, what's this movie? I said, it's called The Robe. Well, what's it about? Jesus being crucified. Wow. Well, how old is this? 1953. I'm going to have to rent it. I said, I have a VHS if you have a VCR. He says, no, that's all right, ma'am. He's like, what you're going through is severe abuse. And this might help you in your case because Chloe, I said, well, I asked him, do you justify this? He said, no. You specifically said, get the alcohol and put the rest on the food card. She put everything on your debit card, didn't tell you, didn't authorize it, didn't think about it, and just charged it. I said, she always does this. And Dad's like, yep. So Dad's like, can you protect her? And he says, yeah, I can do that. So I asked about other issues, and he's like, this is going to be, but he said, even though Social Security considers me vulnerable by federal law, state doesn't consider it. So to them, they're only a state law. So he said, this goes to the prosecuting attorney. So he asked me to fill out an affidavit, send it in. Chloe's got to fill one out on her side, and they'll decide what happens, And he's like, well, Chloe told me literally, Dad sat there and said, look, Chloe will do anything to save her own ass. She basically reported it because she was angry. She wouldn't report herself, and Rita can't report anything. And then he says, why don't you go shopping, Rita? I'm not allowed to leave my house. And Dad's like, yeah, Rita's basically a pre-existing condition, so Chloe's got to do it. Well, when Chloe does this, Chloe, And then he was talking about Dr. Paul and stuff like that. So in the end, it was just basically very combative, But he was very polite. I told him, look, I don't trust cops after I was abused by cops, and he's like, I can understand. But he was very polite. He was actually he unclipped his belt with his gun, and I said, dude, you want to shoot an innocent rabbit who's just basically throwing logs around? And he looks over, and then the bunny's drinking the water, and he's like, he looked at me and he says, if I shot a rabbit, then I deserve to go to prison for life because I assume he's your friend. And I don't deserve to live if I harmed an innocent rabbit making noise. I'm like, dude, he's just making noise. And then he realized the bunny meant the world to me. But yeah, and Dad's like, look, do you really want to basically shoot a rabbit? How's that going to look if everyone rallied against dead rabbit because you got paranoid? So, he asked me, have you been drinking? Yeah, a bit, but, I'm angry. He's like, I'd be too. I said, Chloe's on the phone to me. Chloe's like, oh, yes, I was on Zoom with her. Everyone heard it. I said, is that all you had? Sausage rolls? Yes, there's only this many. How many sausages? Oh, they have this many. Grab them all. Grab me some little weenies, too. Oh, they have this many. Fine. And then she told me on this Skype call that she, quote unquote, was buying her groceries. And then when I called her back and questioned her about it, is what I told the officer. She basically said, oh, the card reader's down. He's like, you got that on speakerphone through your device. And Chloe called you. Yes. He's like, damn. He said, that's enough evidence right there. And Dad said, she'll do anything to save her own ass, but the video says differently. She's screwed. She'll do anything to screw Rita over. Dad said, we won't even go for the other problem. Well, so, so he's like, there's only three options. One, she goes to jail. Two, she gets probation and community service as payback. Or three, she leaves the state before court happens. Four, she gets court ordered to a mental hospital for so long. Or five, she gets put into a group home under guardianship. That's it. Plain and simple. So, anyways, I got to fill out a statement in the morning, but I got like 9 hours and 40 minutes of sleep, so might as well take it soon. So, anyways, if you guys have any questions or concerns, hope you got some ideas or stuff, but I thought I'd share this with you. Chloe called on herself. I was going to do it. I called the crisis team to ask for guidance. Haven't heard from Eliza. Otherwise, I'd message her and say, hey, what do I do? So Chloe called on herself, and now, well, look what's happening. The officer said it's all the prosecuting attorney. He also explained to me the penalty in perjury under the law. Voluntary statement. So that's what happened. So, anyways, with that said, everyone, I hope you have a great night. And I'll check in with you tomorrow once I tell you what's going on. I got spreadsheets to do, and I will tell you what's going on with you afterwards. Hey, Big Britches. Yeah, I know. I know what you mean. I mean, literally. I authorized to use the debit card for my booze. Instead, she authorizes $257 in groceries with hers and myself. And then she spent $30 on her own account. This is her receipt. She bought 2 peanut butter cups, a Benito's bag, Chipotle sausages, hot salsa, bowl of soup from the deli. My bill was, and all this in red is her what she owes. She bought something at grocery. She bought hot dog buns right there in that pot there. I didn't authorize it. Barbecue sauce, didn't authorize those. Meat, 4 packages of sausages and stuff. And Chipotle sausages. And then aloe drinks. And the officer told him up to about $95. And he's like, shit. She was panicked. She didn't know what to do, so she didn't want to wait, you know. Basically, she had my debit card to only buy 2 bottles of whiskey on it. Everything else was supposed to use my food card so I can get groceries for myself. Fortunately, sorry, that's empty. Fortunately, the only order was the whiskey was covered on my debit card. Everything else was supposed to be covered on my food card, except for her groceries. She claimed on the phone in the last video, the 11-hour and 55-minute video, that she bought all her groceries. When I went through the receipt, I found she lied. She said she bought her groceries. This is all hers. Everything else is mine, including the booze. I'll admit the booze is mine. But everything else, I even showed the officer what I bought. And he sat there going, oh my God. So you didn't authorize these things, and she never said it. I said, I got it on YouTube video, 11 hours, 55 minutes, and she said, and I quote, I will be buying my own stuff, so don't worry. Instead, I get charged for the entire bill. No, it's in a different island. That's about 30 miles away in a different island, Lopez or Orcas. So, thing is, the guy just said either Chloe makes a deal with me, pays it back, which my father-in-law said it won't happen, or it goes to the prosecuting attorney. He made a file, case number. So I got to fill this out and go to the prosecuting attorney this weekend. So Chloe calls on herself from the officer. The sheriff told my dad on Zoom, well, why'd she call on herself? Because she's mad. She didn't think anything would happen. He said nothing will, but we'll make a case. And it goes to the prosecuting attorney. But when he found out APS, Adult Protection Services, was trying to nail her for financial abuse the last 4 times, couldn't prove it, he said this will just add fuel to the fire to get her either hospitalized, involuntary committed hospitalized, or outpatient hospitalized, or she can leave the state before it happens, case closed, or she could stay and face criminal charges and go to jail and have jail, a fine, pay back what she owes, and do community service. Or, like I said, court order, or she'd get a guardian and be put into a group home. She doesn't, look, let me put it to you this way. I told the officer tonight from my dad. My dad said, do you want to know how much Chloe owes? He says, yes, I would, honestly. Over the last 4 years, Rita spent probably close to $40,000 or $45,000 in a spreadsheet. I've seen it. Every documented note, Chloe won't pay it back. Chloe takes her dip, I'll pay it back. Doesn't do it. And when she does buy a can, I mean, literally, I even told him, the whole thing about Chloe saying that she used her own debit card for my groceries and that I owed her. And he's like, it doesn't justify. And Dad said this is her way of getting out of it. Saying, oh, well, I use my debit card for booze and foods and everything else. You owe me. Yeah, Dad said the spreadsheet that Rita keeps is everything she owes. Electric bill, everything. And he's like, oh my God. So basically, and then Dad said, look, she's ODD, oppositional defiance disorder. So Dad said she'll never make it up. Anytime she said she'll pay it back, she never does. And now she called on herself thinking this will get her out of it because she's mentally ill. So there you have it, big britches. I can't say anything more because there's nothing more to say. You know, they came out, they heard Poppy, they heard me. They told me to stick with my appointments and see what can happen. Well, he said if we don't make an arrangement, the prosecuting attorney will do something. Well, now Chloe's worried. And Dad's like, Chloe should be, you know. But I can't believe he had to unclip his belt thinking that the bunny was violent. Poor little Boon Moon. Boon Moon was threatened. Hi, baby. So, anyways, any other questions or concerns? Because it's late and I want to get some sleep soon. So please add and subscribe. Please post comments. Please leave feedback, suggestion. Please leave feedback, suggestion at the like, subscribe button. So funding for your family, including your dogs, your cats, your bunnies, your service dogs. Thank you for watching. God bless you in everything you do.